In the middle of a high-end corporate party in San Antonio, the music suddenly changed. It wasn't the hired band anymore. It was a janitor, his hands rough from years of manual labor, playing a grand piano in the shadows. The CEO froze her wine glass, trembling. That song. It was a secret melody composed 30 years ago by a man who died in her arms. She thought the music died with him on that rainy Texas road. But as the janitor's scarred fingers moved across the keys, a ghost from the past began to speak. Who was this man, and how did he know the notes of a dead man's heart? Stay with us as we uncover a story of a hidden identity and a promise that refused to be forgotten. Please support our channel by subscribing to join our community of story lovers. The grand ballroom of the Marriott in San Antonio was a vast sea of shimmering crystal and festive gold. It was the annual year-end gala for Miller Agricultural Enterprises, a night designed to celebrate a year of record-breaking growth. Under the warm glow of the massive chandeliers, the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the savory aroma of a Texas prime rib dinner. This was the one night of the year when the company invited every single employee, from the high-level executives in the glass offices to the hard-working crews in the shipping warehouses, to bring their families and share in the success. Anna Miller stood near the center of the room, surrounded by a circle of local politicians and international partners. At 60 years old, she was the very definition of a Texas success story. She moved with a quiet, regal grace, her dark evening gown reflecting the light like the surface of a midnight lake. As the chief executive officer, she had transformed a small insurance payout into a multi-million-dollar empire. To the business world, Anna was a woman of iron will and sharp intellect. However, beneath the polished exterior of the corporate titan, she carried a persistent loneliness that no amount of wealth could fill. Her heart was a locked room, and she had long ago lost the key. Across the sprawling ballroom, tucked away in a dimly lit corner near the service entrance, sat a man known to the payroll department as Arthur. To the rest of the building, he was simply the quiet janitor who ensured the hallways were spotless before the sun rose. His hair, once a vibrant golden blonde, had long since faded to a dusty silver. His face was a map of hard years, etched with the deep lines of a man who had spent decades under the relentless Texas sun. His hands, which had once been his most precious tools, were now calloused and stiff. A faint jagged scar ran across the knuckles of his right hand, a silent reminder of a life he had walked away from. Beside him sat his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. She was dressed in a simple but neat Sunday dress, her eyes wide with wonder as she watched the colorful dancers move across the polished floor. Adam looked at his daughter and felt a familiar pang of guilt. He had once dreamed of giving her a life filled with music and grand stages, but fate had redirected him to a life of mops and industrial cleaners. He was a man who lived in the shadows, a ghost of the person he used to be. He had seen Anna Miller's face on the company newsletters many times over the years. He knew exactly who she was, but he never once imagined that the powerful woman in the photographs would ever recognize the broken man he had become. As the professional jazz band announced a short intermission, the stage became quiet. The grand Steinway piano sitting alone in the center of the spotlight looked like a lonely island in the middle of the festive chaos. Lily tugged on Adam's sleeve, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Father," she whispered. "Father, look at that beautiful piano. You told me stories about how you used to play. Could you play just one tiny song for me?" Just once. Adam hesitated, his heart racing. He looked at his scarred, rough hands. He had not touched a piano in a public place for over 30 years. But looking into his daughter's eyes, his resolve melted. He glanced around the room. No one was paying attention to the stage or the man in the navy blue workshirt. "Just one song, Lily," he whispered back. He stood up and walked toward the stage. Each step felt like a mile. As he sat down on the leather bench, the scent of polished wood and ivory brought back a sudden flood of memories. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the trembling in his fingers. He did not choose a famous classical piece. Instead, he reached back into the deepest corners of his heart. He began to play a melody titled Wind of the Gulf. It was a haunting, ethereal piece that started with gentle rolling chords that mimicked the waves of the Texas coast. It was a song that was never published or recorded. It was a draft composed by their late friend Leon many years ago. It was the music of their youth, filled with the salt air of Galveston and the hope of 3 students who believed they would live forever. The music flowed out of him like a river breaking through a dam. In the middle of the ballroom, Anna Miller stopped mid-sentence. She dropped her cocktail napkin, her face turning white. That melody. She knew those chords. It was a song that lived only in her dreams and in the faded pages of a tattered notebook she'd kept in a safe for half a lifetime. She turned toward the stage, her heart hammering. She saw a man in a simple work uniform, his back hunched over the keys. She began to walk then, to run, weaving through the startled guests. As she reached the edge of the stage, she stopped, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The music trailed off into a soft vibration. Adam sat perfectly still, his hands resting on the keys. He felt a presence beside him and slowly turned his head. Anna looked at him, her eyes searching the weary face of the janitor. She looked at the silver hair and the deep lines of sorrow. Then she looked at his eyes. Beneath the exhaustion, she saw a familiar spark. She looked down at his right hand and saw the jagged scar he had received on that terrible night so many years ago. Adam, she whispered, her voice cracking with an emotion she had suppressed for decades. The man stood up slowly, his eyes filling with tears. Anna, he replied, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. Anna did not care about the hundreds of people watching. She reached out and touched his rough, calloused hand. A sob escaped her throat as she realized the man who had been cleaning her floors was the same dear friend she thought was lost forever. Long before the glass towers of San Antonio, there was the humid air of Houston and the sun-drenched beaches of Galveston. In the early years of their youth, 3 lives were becoming woven together at the music conservatory. At 20 years old, Adam was considered a piano prodigy. His fingers possessed a technical precision that left his professors in awe, yet he was a quiet soul who preferred the company of his 2 best friends over the applause of a concert hall. He was the anchor of their group, the one who could turn a sheet of music into a living story. Then there was Leon. Leon was the fire to Adam's cool water. He was a gifted composer who saw music in everything from the rustle of oak leaves to the rhythmic pulsing of city traffic. Leon carried a shadow behind his bright smile, having been left an orphan after the devastating winds of a massive coastal storm in 1983. Having no siblings or kin, Leon had learned early on that family was not something you were born into, but something you built with your own hands. The third member of their inseparable trio was Anna. She was a vibrant violinist with a laugh that could brighten even the dimmest rehearsal room. To Adam and Leon, she was the North Star. They spent their days practicing and their evenings wandering the humid streets, dreaming of world stages. By their final years of study, the friendship between Leon and Anna had blossomed into a deep love. It was the kind of romance that felt both legendary and inevitable. On weekends, the 3 of them would drive south toward the coast. Galveston became their sanctuary. They would spend hours on the sand, the salty air sticking to their skin as they talked about a future that seemed to stretch out forever. Leon often sat on the sand with a manuscript notebook. While the seagulls circled overhead, he would scribble down notes for Anna. He called these pieces his drafts for a lifetime. He told Adam that his music was the only thing he truly owned, and he wanted every note to belong to the woman who had given him a sense of belonging. One humid evening, Leon pulled Adam aside. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine. "Adam, I did something today," Leon said. "I went to see an insurance agent. I have no parents to leave anything to, and I have no wealth. But I received a settlement from the Disaster Relief Fund recently. I used that money to open a significant life insurance policy." He paused, his gaze fixed on Anna as she walked along the shoreline. "I named her as my sole beneficiary. She is my family now. If the wind ever takes me away again, I want to know that she has the means to follow her dreams. It is my promise to protect her, even if I am not there to hold her hand." Adam saw the fierce devotion in his friend's eyes and realized that Leon was not just a dreamer, he was a protector. Adam promised to keep the secret. Back at the conservatory, the work continued. Leon's dormitory room became a laboratory of sound. He would spend all night at the keys, chasing a melody that felt just out of reach. Adam was the only person Leon allowed into this private sanctuary. They would sit together for hours, debating the transition of a chord or the tempo of a bridge. One of these pieces stood out above the rest. It was a haunting melody that captured the dual nature of the Texas coast, its beauty and its hidden power. Leon titled it "Wind of the Gulf." This is the one Adam Leon said during a late-night session. "This is my heart on paper. I'm going to finish this and play it for Anna on the day I ask her to marry me." Adam watched his friend play the theme. The music was beautiful, filled with a bittersweet longing that seemed to predict both great joy and sorrow. Adam helped Leon smooth out the complex fingerings, ensuring the melody flowed as naturally as the tide. They laughed about the future, never imagining that the world could ever be anything other than bright. Those years were a golden era of hope. They walked through the halls of the conservatory with the confidence of youth, believing that as long as they had their music and each other, they could weather any storm. The spring arrived with a deceptive beauty, blanketing the Texas hill country in bluebonnets. It was meant to be a weekend of celebration before their final examinations. Adam, Leon, and Anna set off for a weekend escape, leaving the humidity of the city behind. They laughed and sang along to the radio, unaware that the road ahead was about to change everything. By late afternoon, the sun was swallowed by heavy clouds. A sudden spring thunderstorm began to lash the winding road. The rain fell in blinding sheets, turning the pavement into a slick mirror. Adam gripped the steering wheel, his eyes strained against the gray deluge. The tragedy happened in a heartbeat. As they rounded a sharp curve, a large truck hydroplaned its trailer, swinging into their lane. Adam slammed on the brakes, but the car slid helplessly. In the terrifying second before the impact, Leon did not scream. Instead, he threw his body across the center console, shielding Anna with his own frame as the car was struck violently on the passenger side. The world exploded into a chaos of shattering glass. Then there was only a heavy silence, broken by the hiss of steam and the drum of rain. Adam was the first to wake, his head throbbing. He tried to move his right arm, but a white-hot flash of agony shot through his shoulder. He looked to his right and felt his heart stop. Leon lay slumped over the back of the seat, his body a broken barrier between the wreckage and Anna. When the emergency crews arrived, Adam watched through a haze of pain as they covered Leon with a white sheet. The man who had survived a great storm in his youth had finally been taken by a different tempest. In the hospital, the physical pain was eclipsed by a devastating diagnosis. The nerves in Adam's right hand had been severely crushed. His fine motor skills were gone. The precision required to play professionally had vanished in the wreckage. The magical grace that made him a prodigy was dead. Anna stayed in the room next to his. Her physical injuries were manageable, but her spirit was shattered. She spent her days staring out the window, whispering Leon's name. As the days turned into weeks, a dark shadow settled over Adam. He looked at his bandaged hands and felt a profound sense of shame. He felt like a broken instrument. More than that, He felt a crushing weight of guilt. He had lived while the better man had died. He looked at Anna and saw the reflection of his own sorrow. Every time she looked at him, he feared she would only see the accident and the loss of the man she loved. I cannot do this to her, Adam thought. If I stay, I am just a reminder of everything she lost. She needs a life that is not anchored to this grief. Adam made a radical decision. He waited until he was discharged, refusing to let Anna see him. He did not return to the conservatory. He took what little money he had and bought a bus ticket out of town. He left behind his sheet music, his dreams, and the name Adam. He began to call himself Arthur, a name that felt as plain and invisible as he wanted to be. He cut all ties, believing that by vanishing, he was giving Anna a chance to start over without the burden of his broken presence. Anna searched for him for months, but the trail had gone cold. In her darkest hour, a representative from an insurance company arrived at her door. He delivered the news of the policy Leon had secretly taken out. It was a staggering sum of money, a fortune built on the foresight of a young man who had known the fragility of life. The money did not heal Anna's heart, but it allowed her to leave the world of music and enter the world of business. She moved to San Antonio and began to build an empire, using Leon's final gift as the foundation. She became a woman of power, never realizing that the golden-haired boy with the gifted hands was still nearby, hiding in the shadows. By the time the gala arrived in this December, the headquarters of Miller Agricultural Enterprises stood as a monument to modern ambition. The building was a tower of glass and steel. Inside, the floors were polished to a high sheen. On the top floor, Anna Miller sat behind a desk of reclaimed oak. She was a titan of industry, but her private life was a fortress of silence. She had never married, and her grand house remained empty. Every year she would look at an old photograph of two young men and a girl laughing on a beach, wondering where the time had gone. 30 floors below, a man known as Arthur Thompson began his shift. Adam had spent the last 3 decades moving through a world that required strong backs rather than nimble fingers. He had worked in construction on oil rigs and eventually in maintenance. He had become an expert at being invisible. His silver hair was kept short and neat. He had taken the job at Miller Agricultural a few years ago by pure coincidence. He needed a stable paycheck for his daughter, Lily. When he saw the name Miller on the wall, he wondered if it could be her, but he dismissed the thought. He was Arthur, now a man who fixed broken pipes. The irony of their situation was a cruel masterpiece of fate. They lived within the same walls, shared the same daily schedule, yet they were separated by an ocean of social standing. Every Tuesday morning, Anna Miller would walk through the lobby at exactly 8 o'clock. Often, Adam would be there buffing the floors. He would step back into the shadows, keeping his head down as the group passed. He saw the hem of her expensive coats and the rhythmic click of her high heels. Sometimes he would catch a scent of her perfume, a sophisticated note that stirred a painful memory, but he never looked up far enough to see her face. Anna, in turn, looked right through him. To her, the man in the navy blue work shirt was just another part of the building's machinery. She saw a pair of rough hands gripping a mop handle, but she never saw the hands that once played with the delicacy of a dream. She was preoccupied with global markets, never imagining that the soul of her youth was standing just 5 feet away. The years bled into the present. Adam found a strange kind of peace in manual labor. It was honest work that did not require him to be the man he had failed to become. However, the universe has a way of circling back. Adam eventually repaired a leak in the executive boardroom while the room was empty. He saw a framed photograph of Anna receiving an award. He stared at it for a long time, tracing the lines of her face. He realized then, with a shock that turned his blood to ice, that his boss was indeed the Anna from his past. He spent the next week in a state of quiet panic, considering quitting, but he looked at Lily, who was thriving, and he knew he could not leave. He decided to double his efforts to remain hidden, wearing a cap pulled low over his eyes. He told himself that it was better this way. She was a queen in a palace of glass, and he was a man of the earth. To reveal himself would only bring back the pain of the accident and the memory of Leon's death. He did not want to disrupt the life she had built, and so the two of them continued their silent dance. They inhabited the same space, separated only by the roles they had chosen to play. They were two ghosts haunting the same hallways, each carrying a heavy burden of loss, waiting for a single note of music to finally break the silence of 30 years and bring the truth to light. The weeks following the gala were a blur of healing and long conversations. Anna and Adam spent many evenings in her quiet office watching the city lights. They spoke of the years they had lost and the burdens they had carried. Anna finally understood that Adam's disappearance was an act of misguided love. As they looked back, Anna realized a profound truth. The insurance policy Leon had established had done much more than build her business. It had provided the resources that kept them both within the same city, acting as a bridge across time to ensure they would find their way back to one another. "We cannot change the past," Anna said softly, "but we can give Leon the future he never had." With a new sense of purpose, Anna shifted a significant portion of her wealth into a grand new project. They worked side by side, and soon the gates opened to the Leon School of Music. The school was a foundation dedicated to orphans and underprivileged children throughout Texas, giving them a sanctuary and a voice through music. Adam did not return to the stage as a performer, but he found a higher calling as the head of the piano department. In his classroom, he sat beside his students, his scarred hands resting near theirs on the keys. He taught the children that perfection was a myth and that the true power of music did not lie in the speed of one's fingers. "Music is played with the heart," he would tell a struggling student. "These scars are not my failure. They are the marks of a life lived and a friend loved." The school became a beacon of light in the community. On the anniversary of the opening, Anna watched Adam lead a group of students in a beautiful arrangement of Wind of the Gulf. Leon's promise had been fulfilled. His sacrifice had created a vast legacy that would nurture thousands of souls. As the final notes faded into the Texas air, Anna and Adam shared a look of pure peace. They were no longer ghosts. They were the guardians of a melody that would never be forgotten. In the end, we learned that time can change our faces and our names, but it can never silence the melodies of a loyal heart. True love is not just found in grand gestures, but in the quiet sacrifices we make for those we cherish, even when we think the world has forgotten. If this story touched your soul today, please consider joining our community by giving this video a like and sharing it with a friend. And before you go, tell us where you are watching from in the comments, your city, your state, or your country. And do not forget to subscribe for more touching tales. Please click on the latest video appearing on your screen now to continue this journey of inspiration with us.